This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
This meeting is now called to order. For roll call, everyone is in attendance this evening. We will now take a moment of reflection and respect, please. This meeting is now called to order. For roll call, everyone is in attendance this evening. We will now take a moment of reflection and respect. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda, please.
That council adopts the agenda for the meeting of January 12th, 2021 as presented.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Charlton. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, someone to move and someone. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. We'll be moving right into delegations and public meetings. We do have a committee of adjustment hearing this evening, so I will need a resolution for that, please.
That council recess at 7:01 p.m. to commence a committee of adjustment hearing to consider the application for minor variance A0122 respecting 140 Elk Street, and that's the Jansen family application.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Barber and Councillor Ham. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The Committee of Adjustment of the Town of Aylmer is convened to consider application A01-22. Additional information relating to the applications is available for inspection between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. weekdays at Aylmer Town Hall. Signed written submissions shall be accepted by the Secretary Treasurer prior to or during the hearing, and such submissions shall be available for inspection by any interested party. In addition, if a party who is notified does not attend the hearing, the committee can proceed and the party is not entitled to any further notice of hearings. A copy of the decision will be mailed to those persons who attend or are represented at the hearing and those who have filed a written request with the secretary for notice of the committee's decision. The committee will receive input in the following order: the agent or applicant, the public, manager of planning and development, and the clerk. Application A01-22 is made by Peter and Rosemary Jansen, the owner of the property known municipally as 140 Elk Street in the town of Aylmer. The applicant is requesting a minor variance from the requirements of the town's zoning bylaw number 57-99 as amended. The applicant is seeking relief from Section 3(1)(c) accessory buildings and structure size requirements for accessory uses within the town zoning bylaw in order to facilitate the construction of a detached accessory building which will be attached to the lean-to structure in the rear yard of the subject property. Is the applicant or agent present? And Josh, do you know if they're attending this evening?
Through you, Madam Chair, they did not register to attend this evening.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Also, Josh, can you confirm whether or not any members of the public wish to speak to the application?
Through you, Madam Chair, there were no registrations from members of public wishing to speak to the application this evening.
Okay, thank you, Josh. So good evening, Christy. I'll turn it over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair French, and good evening, members of the committee. As the chair has outlined, this is an application seeking relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw as they pertain to maximum size size requirements for accessory buildings and structures. So the Jansen family is proposing to remove the existing garage on site and replace it with a larger, partially enclosed and partially unenclosed accessory structure that will be used for personal uses. They have advised me that there's no business proposed or to be operated into this building. The size being requested is purely to accommodate a garage, a workshop area, and then a covered space, which would be, I believe, the lean-to area that won't have walls for a recreational vehicle. So this application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. There were no comments or concerns brought about through internal circulations from public agencies or from members of the public. So the application was evaluated using the 4 tests for minor variances under the Planning Act, and I'm satisfied that all 4 tests can be satisfied. For this application, it was important to contextualize the request. I think that was the key consideration here. The lot that the Jansens currently have is almost a half acre, which is about twice the size of a typical town lot. We typically see about 0.2, some 0.15 acre lots in town. And the locational context is important too, as it's adjacent to the corporate boundary of the town with the township of Malahide immediately to the south, and there being an existing barn and agricultural uses there. So the proposed building does comprise an area that is approximately twice the permitted size, but due to those considerations that I just mentioned, I do think that it could be considered minor in nature. The proposed building would remain smaller than the single detached dwelling that's currently on the property and would comprise an area lot coverage of about 8%. It's currently at about 4%. The Jansens have removed a shed that was previously on the property and would remove the existing garage in order to facilitate construction of this proposed accessory building. Doing a visual inspection from the street, I don't believe there would be impacts on neighbors. You can see very clearly from the street the red barn in the background. You know, this new structure may obscure that view a little bit, but otherwise it's fairly non-intrusive and anticipated not to have impact on the surrounding areas. The intent of restricting the size of accessory residential buildings is really to ensure that they're used for ancillary purposes, so that they're second to the principal use of the dwelling, and that they remain visually subordinate. So based on these considerations, I am offering support for the application and recommend that the committee do offer approval subject to one condition, and that being that eaves and trough be installed on the accessory building in order to direct stormwater away from lot lines, and that be done to the satisfaction of the town. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Christy. Are there any questions about this? Okay, I don't see any hands up. So Josh, have you received any communications related to this application?
Through you, Madam Chair, I have not.
Okay, thank you. Well, with no further questions or comments, Josh, could you please read the resolution?
That report Plan 0122 entitled Planning Evaluation Report, Application for Minor Variance, file number A0122, 140 Elk Street, Jansen, be received by the Committee of Adjustment for information, and that the Committee of Adjustment conducted a public hearing on January 12th, 2022 at approximately 7 p.m. to receive comments from the public regarding application for minor variance A0122, and that application for minor variance A0122 requesting relief from section 3(1)(c) of the zoning bylaw to permit an accessory building with an attached lean-to having a total area of approximately 152 meters squared be approved, subject to the following condition: that eaves and trough be installed on the accessory building to direct stormwater away from lot lines to the satisfaction of the town.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Someone to move and someone to second, please. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Ham, are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Josh, could you please read the next resolution?
That the Committee of Adjustment hearing is adjourned at 7:09 p.m.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Oslach and Councillor Chapman, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And Josh, the next resolution, please.
That the council meeting be reconvened at 7:09 p.m.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Barber, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Now we'll move into minutes to approve.
That council approves the following minutes. Regular virtual meeting of council held on December 15th, 2021.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Chapman, are there any questions or concerns? Councillor Ham, go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship, I just noticed that it says that I was present and I wasn't present at that meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ham. Okay, are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is the consent agenda.
That council receives consent agenda item 7A, respecting Catfish Creek Conservation Authority draft budget for 2022 as information.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Ham, are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into action items. The first report is Plan 02-22.
That report, Plan 0222, entitled Planning Evaluation Report, Application for Consent to Sever number E222, respecting 62 Victoria Streets North in the town of Elmer, be received for information, and that the application for consent to sever number E222, relating to the property located at part of lots 11 and 12 on the north side of North and west side of Victoria, Plan 164, and known municipally as 62 Victoria Street North, be supported with recommended conditions for reasons set out in this report, and further that this report be forwarded to the Land Division Committee for its review and consideration.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Chapman. And I'll turn it over to you, Christy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council. This is an application that has been received by the Land Division Committee at the county and circulated to the town for review and comment. The applicants are proposing to sever or split the existing residential property to create one new residential infill lot with frontage on North Street. The lot that they are proposing to create to sever and convey would have an area of approximately 366 square meters, and the proposed lot to be retained, which contains the existing single detached dwelling, would comprise an area of approximately 458 square meters. I do note that upon review of this application and in consultation with the landowner, these lot sizes are a bit smaller than what is typical in this area and within the R1B zone. So in order to facilitate the severance, we've recommended a condition that a variance be obtained as if approval is granted. So through evaluation, I'm satisfied that the criteria of the official plan has been satisfied with respect to severances, and that any deficiencies with respect to the zoning bylaw could be addressed separately through an application for minor variance. Based on this, I'm recommending that council offer support for this application to the Land Division Committee for their consideration, and that the support be conditional upon the following items. So the first condition would be that the applicants initiate and assume all costs associated with the required application for minor variance, and that application be successfully completed prior to the severance being fully granted. The applicants would be required to provide confirmation of any existing overhead or underground services that are installed on the lot to be retained, so where the existing house is, and that if there are any infrastructure that traverses the lot line, that it either be redirected or removed completely at the expense of the applicants to the satisfaction of the town. Similarly, we're requesting that the lot to be severed, which would be that new residential lot, be individually serviced, so connections would come off North Street, and that would have to be done at the expense of the applicant to the satisfaction of the town. And then the last three conditions are just typical conditions: that the draft reference plan be prepared. We've moved to a bit of a different condition here, being that we would actually like to see the reference plan being prepared prior to it being approved, should this application be approved, and that prior to it being submitted to the registry office. And that once that plan is submitted to the registry office, that we do receive a plan for our electronic records. Finally, we would request that the town of Aylmer advise the Secretary Treasurer of the Land Division Committee that all these requirements have been satisfied before the stamping of the deeds to create this parcel, should it be approved. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Christy. Are there any questions for Christy? Okay, I don't see any. Okay, just double checking here. Okay, thanks. So I guess we'll vote then. So all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is report Corp 0322.
That report Corp 0322 entitled Planning and Building 2021 Year-End Report be received for information.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Oslege and Councillor Barber. And I'll turn this back over to you, Josh.
Certainly, through your worship and two members of council, the purpose of this report is really to provide council with a summary of the building and planning metrics for 2021. And it's a more general follow-up report to the specific update that Christy had provided at the December 15th meeting, just respecting some of our ongoing planning applications and the progress that we've made in that front. So overall, the total value of construction activity facilitated by planning and building has exceeded $29.5 million in 2021, with 91 permits issued, completed, or closed in that year. The number of process planning applications also saw a positive increase, and beyond increasing the residential unit count to 188, with an additional 31 units currently under construction or completed at the time of writing this report. Other key items that we wanted to highlight, so accomplishments of council from this past term include the facilitation of 49 new childcare spaces as a result of a minor variance, the expansion of a medical center, and multiple facility additions to some major industrial sites in town. With historical averages having been exceeded in nearly all planning and building metrics for this year, staff are really eager to continue supporting residents, business owners, service providers, and developers that are interested in growing Aylmer. Town manager of planning and development and the CBO continue to explore opportunities to improve program and service delivery at Town Hall. And it's my opinion that we've taken great steps to review nearly all aspects of the building and planning departments, ranging from application form review all the way to our corporate sort of internal standard operating procedures. So that said, based on current market conditions and works that are currently in progress, we're very confident that 2022 is going to reflect a similar snapshot of 2021, and we're very excited to continue on this enhanced productivity.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Are there any questions or comments concerning this report? Councillor Oslege, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. This is a very good news report. Town of Aylmer is growing exponentially, and I think the future looks bright for the town.
Thank you, Councillor Oslege. Are there any other questions or concerns or comments? Well, it certainly is a good news report, and thank you, Josh. Seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is report finance 0122.
That report finance 0122 respecting the appointment of an auditor for 2022 be received as information, and that council directs staff to present a bylaw appointing Scrimger and Company CPA Professional Corporation as municipal auditors for the town of Aylmer for the year 2022.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Charlton, and I'll turn this over to Heather. Good evening, Heather.
Good evening. I just wanted to add a couple of things. So thank you, Your Worship, and through you and to members of council. Christine and her team have always helped the finance team in Aylmer. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that Christine shares, best practices, suggests improvements to things like internal controls and accounting. She encourages different walkthroughs that need to happen from the financial controls perspective. And she always shares like best practices and lessons learned from other municipalities municipalities where she can. So I just wanted to make that council aware that she always makes herself available to fill in the history on prior year financial statement data and processes. And I'm just really happy with her service over the past year. So I'm hoping council will consider the appointment tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. Are there any questions or comments? And I have to agree, we've been dealing with Christine for quite some time and she does an amazing job. So with no further questions or comments, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next report is Finance 02-22.
That report, Finance 02-22, entitled Municipal Borrowing for Current Expenditures, be received for information, and that council directs staff to prepare a bylaw authorizing the treasurer to utilize the Consolidated Reserve Fund for borrowing, if necessary, to meet operating expenditures in 2022, and further, that council directs staff to prepare a bylaw authorizing the treasurer to draw on the existing standby line of credit at the Bank of Montreal, if required, to meet operating expenditures in 2022.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Charlton. And Heather, it's pretty straightforward report. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this report?
Just one note, Your Worship, if I may. This year is the RBC Bank has actually switched their banking practices to change for mortgage. People used to be able to pay their taxes through their mortgage, and they're not able to now. So, or they're transitioning away from that. So I just wanted to note that our tax collector and our deputy clerk have really done a great job at communicating this through social media and through any of the other media channels on the website to promote the PAP, which is the pre-authorized payment process, so that it will help improve the gaps in cash flow. Because as the RBC takes away this opportunity for their clients, we could possibly see a cash flow issue, but I'm not anticipating that. And I just wanted to commend them for thinking forward and considering the possibility. And we have signed up quite a few people on the PAP process for January because of it. So that's all I had to add.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next report up is Finance 03-22.
That report, Finance 03-22, entitled Interim Tax Bylaw 2022, be received for information, and that council directs staff to prepare a bylaw establishing the interim tax rates for the first two 2022 installment dates.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Barber and Councillor Ham. And again, this is quite a very clear report, Heather, but is there anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next report is CAO 04-22.
That report, CAO 04-22, respecting community improvement plan applications, be received as information, and that council approve the community improvement grant in the amount of $5,000 for the 55 Talbot Street Rehabilitation Project.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ham and Deputy Mayor Andrews, and I'll turn it over to Andy. Good evening, Andy.
Thank you, Mayor French. So at a high level, we had two applications for our community improvement program. Both were valid applications. However, one really stood out as being something that fit with the criteria of what you're looking for in the CIP as kind of our highest level, which would be rehabilitating a building that is currently vacant. And for that reason, we're suggesting that the entire budget that we have for it, the $5,000, go to that one application at 55 Talbot. The way it would work is we would front half of the $2,500 to start with, and then after receipts were provided for the total work at least in the amount of $5,000, we would provide the other portion of it, just to allow them to get underway immediately. Through talking with the William Van Rays, who is the person overseeing the project, he wants to get started in February. So I do think that there is some urgency on his end to get this work underway. And I think that's overall a positive for the town to see that building rehabilitated. And with that, I'll try my best to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any questions concerning this report? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next report is CAO 02-22.
That report, CAO 02-22, respecting the COVID-19 update, be received as information.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Charlton. Do you have anything further to add, Andy? It's a pretty straightforward report.
Thank you, Mayor French. No, just to say that the staff and the emergency control group continue to monitor and update things. So we are on top of this. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Andy. Are there any questions, comments about this report? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next item up is new business and matters of urgency. Okay, I don't see any hands up for that. We will move into first and second readings.
That council gives first and second reading to the bylaw 0322, being a bylaw to appoint the municipal auditors, bylaw 0422, being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing for current expenditures and capital outlay during 2022 from the Consolidated Reserve Fund of the Town of Aylmer, and bylaw 522, being a bylaw authorizing the treasurer to draw on existing standby line of credit if required to meet operating expenditures in 2022.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Oslach. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. We'll move into three readings.
That council approves and gives three readings to bylaw 0122, being a bylaw to provide for the conveyance for land of parkland purposes or cash in lieu of parkland conveyance, and bylaw 0222, being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy for all tax classes for 2022, and to provide for the payment of taxes and to provide for penalty and interest of 1.25%.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Charlton. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, are there any inquiries by members? Go ahead, Councillor Oslach. I think you're on mute, Councillor Oslach.
Sorry about that. Your worship, I just would like to know from the clerk, how is our new council chambers going? Just like an update.
Okay.
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair, and to Councillor Oslach, we're making progress. The contractor was able to get a fair bit of the demolition works completed throughout the holiday break and the office closure. So we were grateful that they were able to accomplish that. Currently, we're on pace with the timelines that were initially provided to council. So we're anticipating substantial completion sort of in the late springtime at this point. Council will have noticed that we've got a fair number of bins outside of Town Hall where a lot of the material that's being brought out of the facility is being stored temporarily. And I would also mention to council that at this point we haven't uncovered anything too out of the ordinary. I think that sometimes with these demolition projects, no news is good news, and this far everything is running smoothly and to plan.
Thank you, Josh. Are there any other inquiries by members? Okay. Statements and committee reports. I don't see any hands up for that. There is no report of the mayor this evening. Notice of motion. Councillor Barber has provided a notice of motion to the clerk to be considered at the next regular virtual meeting of council. With a seconder, the motion will be considered in the new business section of the January 19th, 2022 regular virtual meeting of council. We will be moving into closed session. I need a resolution for that, please, Josh.
That council moves into a meeting closed to the public at 7:29 p.m. to discuss the following matters. Report Clerk 0122, respecting the Fire Services Coordinator recruitment update. Report Clerk 0222, respecting an update on potential litigation. And Report CAO 0322, respecting an update on industrial lands. And these items are pursuant to Section 239(2)(c), D, and E of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matter pertains to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, as respecting Report CAO 0322. And it also includes litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality. That's respecting Report Clerk 0222. And finally, it's respecting labor relations or employee negotiations, which is the exemption for Report Clerk 0122.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Someone to move and someone to second? Deputy Mayor Anders and Councillor Barber, are there any questions or concerns? Being none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And we'll just take a moment to get moved into